In this video, I'm going to take my riding lawnmower and turn it into a tank. So, might want to check that out.
I want to give a special thanks to our sponsors, Bad North America, an Australian-born workwear brand that's now in the US and Canada. I will include a 10% coupon code in the video description below. And World of Tanks. If you don't have time to turn your lawnmower into a tank, you can still drive one virtually with World of Tanks, a team-based action game dedicated to armor tank combat. We've all been there. You're driving your lawnmower around, and then all of a sudden you think to yourself, I wonder if I could turn this thing into a tank. So, well, I thought I'd give it a go. I mean, it was the middle of a global pandemic, so it's not like I didn't have extra time on my hands. So I pulled my lawnmower into my shop and started trying to think of how I was going to make this possible. And that's when I decided to stop thinking and just start doing. So I went out and bought a bunch of 2x4s and some plywood, and I just started cutting stuff up. I don't know what this thing on the front was, but I didn't think it was important, so I just took it off and set it aside and started attaching 2x4s everywhere I could. I knew I needed a good frame of 2x4s that I could use to attach my plywood and create a tank-like shell that I could build off of. So I just started shoving 2x4s every which way, nailing them together. Literally, I didn't have a plan. I just was screwing things together and hoping that it looked like a tank. It was about this time that my neighbor Justin stopped by. He's got his own YouTube channel, Rainfall Projects, and if you're not following him, you're an idiot. You should definitely go subscribe. But I started telling him about my idea to just attach a piece of metal to the back wheel well and actually drive the tracks, but more about that later. With Justin leaving a little confused but reassured that my plan would work, I just got back to screwing more 2x4s onto the lawnmower. And what do you know, I mean, it really started to kind of look like a tank. I put a little angle on the front, a little angle on the back, some supports here and there, and before long I had a pretty good looking tank frame made out of 2x4s. So with my structural frame complete, it was time to start just coating the whole thing in sheets of plywood. For this I used 1/2-inch birch plywood. You don't want to skimp when it comes to making a lawnmower tank. I started with the top and then cut out the hole for my turret. That's going to be where I sit and fire at enemy neighbors and the such. I got a lot of questions during this building process about weight concerns on the lawnmower and whether or not I took any consideration to how much weight the lawnmower could hold. Well, the short answer is I didn't take any considerations into anything during any point of this build. I literally just started screwing stuff to my lawnmower, so just don't be worried, I'm not. With all the lower portions of my tank pretty much covered in plywood, I started working on the gun turret. Now, I didn't want just a square box. I wanted to have some flair, some shape, some pizzazz, if you will. So I bent the sides out of 1/2-inch plywood to kind of give it some angle, and then I pieced together the front and back with small cut pieces of plywood that somewhat resembled armored plating. And then I buttoned up the last remaining pieces of the tank, again with 1/2-inch birch ply. As you can see me fitting the lower well there where the track eventually will ride. For the top of my gun turret, I actually went down to 1/4-inch birch plywood. The reason is simple. In combat, most of the time you don't take a shell directly to the top of your tank, usually just the front, back, or sides. So I thought 1/4-inch would be okay. And then of course I fitted my PVC barrel, and last but not least, I had to make a lid for the top of my tank. You don't want, rainwater and the such to get inside and get you all wet and icky. After completely coating the whole tank in 1/2-inch ply, I just didn't think it had enough depth and texture. So I cut out some pieces of 1/4-inch ply and I screwed them on to add additional shape, texture, and of course, added armor in a battle situation. And like the good woodworker I am, I sanded the entire tank thoroughly before taking it outside to spray it with a fresh coat of paint. This would probably be a good opportunity to tell you a little bit more about our sponsor, World of Tanks, where you can play online for free and play really any way you want. Check it out. Whoa, hey, buddy, don't shoot at me. I'm trying to mow the lawn here, all right? This is a dangerous length of grass for everybody. Somebody could trip over this. It's not safe. Just let me get this trimmed down real quick and then we can move on with our campaign. What if you lost your glasses in this grass, huh? You never find those again. Just let me get this mowed down and then... Oh, all right. I almost got it right, that last little set. Okay, here we go. Let's do this thing. See, now aren't you glad I mowed the lawn first? It really is a hoot to play, and you can click the link in the video description below to register for free and start playing today. I sprayed the entire tank thoroughly and then sanded between coats and sprayed again, then sanded and sprayed again. If there's one thing I did not want to do, it was skimp on my tank's paint job. I then rattle canned the barrel, and what do you know, it is really starting to come together. But I still didn't think it looked quite tanky enough. So I spray painted a bunch of D-rings and hooked them on. And then of course, any good tank has to have a good set of stencils. I decided to add stars to either side of the gun turret just to really make it pop when you're out there mowing the lawn in front of the neighbors. And then I also added my logo to the front of the tank. They might not see me coming, but if they do, I want them to know who killed them. And lastly, I stenciled my company name on the back, just in case they ever want to buy some furniture. Oh yeah, I also added LED headlights, you know, safety. While I was dinking around making the lawnmower look like a tank, my neighbor Justin, remember him? Rainfall Projects, the guy that you're an idiot for not subscribing to if you haven't. Well, he was busy working on the metal components to actually make the tracks work. Look at these gnarly looking things he created to attach to our tank. What a sweetheart. So this is basically how these work. These back pieces attach directly to the back wheel via the lug nuts, so when the back wheel spins, they spin and drive the track. And then this piece attaches to the front and spins and holds the track in place. Now, we actually made a huge mistake with this front piece, and we forgot that each side has to spin independently from one another, and we created it on one long axle. But we just cut the axle in half, made them spin independently, and, well, hopefully it works. Here's a little pro tip. If you ever find yourself building a tank, composite decking flipped upside down gives the perfect profile to make your tank tracks out of. We decided to hook these tank tracks to long toe straps. The only problem was the toe straps were bright yellow, and we needed them darker. So I made up this little bucket and used it as a dipping system to dye our toe straps with just some paint and water. And then we took our cut pieces of composite decking and we screwed them to the toe straps using sheet metal screws. And well, we just kind of attached them to the tank. Fingers crossed. Once we got all the tracks wrapped around our metal components and secured tightly, I wanted to add some additional supports in between the front and back axles. So I decided to cut out some little wood thingies and attach them to a total of 6 wheelbarrow wheels on each side of the tank, one a little bit higher and 2 lower. This would take a little bit of the slop out of our track, and well, it also just looks really cool and tank-like, so I thought it was probably a good idea. Then I secured the wood tank wheel thingy in place, simply with a washer and a screw through the end of each one of the 5/8 inch dowels that was holding the wheels in place. Then I added a few ornaments just to make it pop. And lastly, I decided to paint my son's name on the barrel. Apparently, it is tradition to paint something on the barrel, and my son's name seemed a good enough thing as any. So, Ivor, this tank's for you. Oh, and I think I forgot to mention, the cannon is actually gonna be a potato gun. So I got this little potato gun because I wanted to be able to reload from inside the tank without having to get out and shove potatoes down the long barrel. And just like that, our tank was done. Even the local news was excited about it. They did a full story.
A woodworker near Albany decided to put that time and his woodworking skills to use.
Well, let's see if she rides. There comes a day in every man's life, a day that defines him, a day that he will look back upon as the day that he changed from a boy into a man. I knew that for me, this would be that day. The weather was dark and stormy. The first hint of spring hung in the air like a sweet melody as I saddled up my great wooden beast and headed into the unknown. As I traveled out into the breach, thoughts of home and the ones I left behind were fresh on my mind and soul. But I powered through with the confidence that could only come from being in a machine of such a magnitude. As I traveled forward in my great war machine, well, I began to get hungry, so I decided to change into my civvies and go on my next great adventure. Leave the fields and the trails to the infantrymen, but leave the roads and the streets to us tankers, for they are our path to victory. Hey man, what's up? Yeah, can I get a burrito? After securing my rations, I headed back to the field of battle, for I knew that the war would not be over until the battle was good and won. As I drove forward towards my great victory, the words of G.K. Chesterton echoed in my heart and soul. The true soldier fights not because he hates what is in front of him, but because he loves what he left behind. Mother bird, this is COVID Killer, requesting permission to fire, requesting permission to fire.
Roger that, COVID Killer. Permission to fire.
Roger that. A soldier's task is not easy. It is not fun, but it is a duty that he is called upon to do in a time of...
Hey, Dad! Quit playing around already! Just mow the lawn!
The grass may be cut. It may look as though you have won, but the grass will grow back, and it will continue to grow and grow stronger unless somebody is willing to stand up. Somebody is willing
to load up into a great machine and hold that grass at bay. I would like to think that that somebody is among us. Heck, I would like to think that that somebody might just be me.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that video. Now do me a personal favor and click subscribe right down there below the video so you can stay up to date. All the other videos I'm going to be doing, who knows, maybe it'll be woodworking, maybe I'll turn my washing machine into a boat. You only know if you subscribe. Now, have a nice day.